A trait is an enduring psychological characteristic of a person that influences their behaviour. Trait theories are currently the most influential approach to describing types of personalities. Identifying the traits which a person may possess has two main functions. One, to describe a person's behaviour, and two, to be able to predict future behaviour. One of the first trait conception theorists was Hans Eysenck. Eysenck attempted to find a link between brain function and traits, for example, suggesting that extroverts have under-aroused brains and therefore sought out activities which would enhance arousal. Eysenck's first dimension, extroversion and introversion, refers to something very similar to our common sense understanding of the terms. Shy, quiet people versus outgoing and even loud people. This dimension is found in everyone, but the physiological explanation is a bit more complex. Eysenck hypothesized that extroversion-introversion is a matter of the balance of inhibition and excitation. Excitation is the brain waking itself up, getting into an alert, learning state. Inhibition is the brain calming itself down, either in the usual sense of relaxing and going to sleep, or in the sense of protecting itself in the case of overwhelming stimulation. So what either excites us or inhibits us determines where we will lie along the extroversion-introversion dimension. The second dimension is neuroticism stability. Neuroticism is the name Eysenck gave to a dimension that ranges from normal, fairly calm and collected people to ones that tend to be quite nervous. His research showed that these nervous people tended to suffer more frequently from a variety of nervous disorders we call neuroses, hence the name of the dimension. But understand that he was not saying that people who scored high on the neuroticism scale are necessarily neurotics, only that they are more susceptible to neurotic problems. The final dimension, according to Eysenck, was psychoticism and impulse control. Eysenck came to recognise that, although he was using large populations for his research, there were some populations he was not tapping. He began to take his studies into the mental institutions of England. When these masses of data were factor analysed, a third significant factor began to emerge, which he labelled psychoticism. Like neuroticism, higher psychoticism does not mean you are psychotic or doomed to become so, only that you exhibit some qualities commonly found among psychotics, and that you may be more susceptible, given certain environments, to become psychotic. As you can imagine, the kinds of qualities found in higher psychotic people include a certain recklessness, a disregard for common sense or conventions, and a degree of inappropriate emotional expression. It is the dimension that separates those people who end up in institutions from the rest of humanity. Another trait conception theory is the Big Five model. This is the most modern trait theory. It combined previous research findings and found that of all of the traits, 5 recurred over and over. These 5 dimensions of personality are often called the Big Five. They refer to openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. So let's take a look at the 5 factors. For each factor in each dimension, a person can score low or high or somewhere in between. Each factor sits on a continuum made up of lower order factors. This model has, however, been criticised as it is difficult to explain how just 5 personality factors can explain the enormous variation in personalities that exist in the world. It does not explain how these traits develop or why they change. It simply identifies that they do exist. Low scores on the openness scale would mean a person would be more conventional, down to earth, and not really artistic. High scores would lead a person to being more original, imaginative, curious, artistic, and open to new ideas and new challenges. Low scores on the conscientiousness scale would mean a person would be lazy, impulsive, irresponsible, careless, and undependable. High scores would result in the person being more responsible, organised, self-disciplined, and achieving. Low scores on the extroversion scale will mean a person will be quiet, passive, reserved, and withdrawn. And high scores would mean they are outgoing, sociable, talkative, fun-loving, and affectionate. Low scores on the agreeableness scale will mean a person is more argumentative, ruthless, uncooperative, suspicious, and vindictive. High scores, however, will mean a person will be warm, gentle, good-natured, trusting, and helpful. And finally, we have neuroticism, or emotional stability. Low scores would mean a person is more stable, easygoing, relaxed, calm, and even-tempered. High scores, however, would mean a person is more insecure, anxious, guilt-ridden, worriers, and can often be moody. To summarise, the trait theories are the most influential approach to describing types of personalities. A trait is an enduring psychological characteristic of a person that influences their behaviour. Identifying traits has two functions: to describe a person's behaviour and to be able to predict their future behaviour. Regardless of the theory, trait conception theorists believe that a person's personality was defined by where these traits lied along a series of continuums. For Eysenck, he believed there were 3 continuums, and the Big Five model suggests 5 main continuums.